Hello everybody, thank you for coming back to the channel and to this project of the Antonov to RC conversion. I was actually just checking when I started to build it, because I write it down. It's going to be almost 6 months, if not exactly 6 months, and it's still not done, right? So it is dragging on quite a lot, and yeah, sometimes I'm about to give up, so I might need to take a rest again and go for another project. But what I'm doing now, and hopefully in this chapter what we'll see, is that I'll finish putting on the covering on the fuselage. I'm not going to move it now because it's still wet. I started to put it already. So I'm putting the blue stripe that's going to go down the middle of the fuselage. Same on the other side. I have to cut out the windows, and hopefully it'll give it a nice touch, at least break up the silver from the top and the bottom. And the plan is also for this chapter is to put on the whole tail assembly. I have it up there somewhere, I'm not going to bring it down now, but to put the tail assembly on, because that whole tail area has not been finished. I'm glad I didn't do it, because I've been turning the model on its side and upside down and everything, and had the tail assembly being on it, it would have been much more difficult. I don't have a real jig to put models on, which might be an idea for a future project to make one of those. But as I say, so I'll be finishing the fuselage tissue covering with a blue stripe, and then basically I'm going to be using the blue to patching any other connections, right? So there's the blue. I still have a little bit. I use it for the for the Avenger, I think is what I used it most for. So then any other connections that are missing, as I won't be able to paint them on so well, I'll be using that somehow to cover those patches, and it might give it also a little bit of some kind of texture and some pattern. So I don't think it's going to be bad, and that's basically it. So the challenge here is to cut out these panels. You still see where they come together, because it's not just straight, it gets narrow as it goes backwards. So I'm cutting out panels of like 6 to 5 centimeters long, and it's difficult to line it up perfectly, to measure it perfectly, to cut it perfectly. There's a half a millimeter there offset, but I'm going to leave it. It's annoying, but I'm going to leave it. Hopefully tomorrow, when I'm a bit more rested or have a bit more time, if I have time, then I'll try to put on the last 2 panels here, or maybe one panel. Might do one long panel. Let it dry, cut out the windows, flip it on its side carefully, because I don't want to damage the wings. Do the same thing. Okay, so that's the plan. So hopefully by the end of this video we'll have it standing with the tail on. And I'm thinking, no, I can't. I was thinking if I could have it with the tail on, I could actually do some prop runs, because then it might have its center of gravity more or less better and it wouldn't tip over on its nose. But I have the wings trailing, right? I have the wings hanging from the rigging. So no, I'm not going to be able to play with it yet, unfortunately. Anyhow, follow me along on this one, and let's see how it ends up. Time for an update, and a handheld one, I'm afraid. So I think you saw on this side, which is the right side of the fuselage, I put the blue stripe in patches, and unfortunately you can see it a bit messy. Not at all satisfied with that, but can't do much about it now. So on the other side I did it all in one piece. Much better. Should have done it actually from the beginning. So anyhow, learning as we go. I still have a little bit of tissue actually. I tissued over the windows and then I cut it out. I have to pull that one out actually. It should be already cut out. And then what I've done, the big progress actually on this one, is I've glued in place the tail assembly. As you can see, I had to cut with the cutter a little bit of the tissue here. And then I checked where it was going to be. I put some glue and I assembled it in there. The next challenge is going to be, or multiple challenges that are coming are, amongst other things, let's see if you can see it there, is going to put in the control rod for the elevator. It's a bit too long, so I need to cut it. I was thinking of kind of assembling it together at the same time as I would glue it, but then I was afraid that it would actually have some tension on it and make it all slip and go crooked. So in the end I did it like this, but I'm still going to need to trim it. I don't know if you can see actually the push rod there, and yeah, it's a bit too long, but I think if I trim it, then I'll be able to put it into the hole. For the rudder it shouldn't be a problem because it still moves. Once I have that in place, then I'm going to trim and cut all those stringers that will help also hold the tail assembly in place. And then once that is done, then to proceed with the tissue covering. probably also in blue, as I can't paint under here without some serious masking. But yeah, well, let me show you from the other side. Let's see if you can see on the other side. There are that's the hook and the control rod for the rudder. Okay, so anyhow, so it's coming together. From this point on, it's going to be very difficult to have it on its back, so I hope it's not really needed. Some of the wrinkles are visible. I've tried to work them out, but it is what it is, right? So as I say, starting to take some shape, and hopefully soon it'll be the final assembly. Almost there. And an update. So as you might be able to see, I've managed to put on the stringers. Kind of did a boo-boo on one side, but anyhow, if you don't know, you might not notice. So what I want to do now, before I do the covering, I want to make sure that the control surfaces are moving. So I'm going to connect everything up. If I manage to fish out the cables, let's see, with some tweezers, and I still got the covering here, the masking tape that was protecting from the paint. I take it out. Yeah, there. So I'm going to put in the battery. The transmitter is already on. Let's see if that means anything. Let's see the throttle. Throttle is working. Ailerons aren't because they're disconnected. Let's see the elevator. I'm going to go up and it goes down. So I need to invert it. I knew that. And then let's see the rudder. The rudder actually has a lot of throw, which I guess it's good in case the ailerons don't work. And the elevator has a lot of throw down, but not up, which I think I want the opposite, right? Like it would be good to have the opposite, because typically it's good to have an opposite. So I think I'm going to have to stretch out, maybe disconnect it again. You can't see it maybe, right? So I don't know if you can see it from here. I don't know. So that's, even if it's inverted now, I'm going down, but it's going up, but I would be able to, let's see. So I probably need to stretch it that it's pointing a bit further up, and then it's also going to depend on the center of gravity. But the good thing is that at least the surfaces, they are moving, so that is good. So I'll do a little bit of fixing to the elevators, aligning to the elevators a little bit more, and then I continue with the tissue covering of this rear part, which is a bit complicated because it's kind of working upwards, but it's progress. And time to wrap up the video. So let me put the plane on its nose, and there, as you can see, it's kind of looking more or less okay. Don't know if you can actually see it. I've put on panels of tissue. You can see the separations, but it is what it is, and I left a gap there for the push rod to come out. That's one side, and here is the other. So as it is, like, I'm satisfied with it. It's not as beautiful as I would like to have it, for sure, but it fulfills its duty, and I hope that in a distance, or if it ever gets to fly, you can't really notice it so much. So that's where I'm going to leave it now. All the control surfaces seem to work. I've already inverted also the ailerons, so that's working well. And then the next step, there's still a lot to go actually. It looks like it's almost done, but not quite. So the next step is going to be to assemble the wings, glue the wings in place, and after that also to work on the struts. The struts are somehow finished, but I need to polish them. They're not finished. The shape is there, but I need to polish them still quite a lot. So still quite a lot of assembly. So I'm not sure if one, maybe two videos still left to go. Engine cowling still needs to be somehow figured out, and things like that, right? So almost there, looking, I would say, acceptably good. If it ever flies, that's another question. In any case, as always, thank you very much for following along and for all your tips and tricks, and I'll see you next time.